We saw debris falling onto Church Street, metal. So right away you think it was some HVAC or something. But we gathered the team and you know what, we just figured it was just best to leave. And then when the second one hit, we all realized that it wasn't a Cessna, it wasn't an HVAC issue, it was an attack. I ran down Wall Street. That's when the cloud caught up to me because I couldn't run as fast as that cloud was when the first tower collapsed.
First, I didn't even know you went back to work the next day. I know the world keeps spinning and the city keeps going, but it's wild to me that you had to go right back to work as if everything was normal, even though it wasn't.
You and your sisters and your mother, they are my family. God forbid if it was ever the other way, I always think he would do the same. He would be somewhere in my shoes somehow.
Thanks for doing this. This is awesome.
This is great. I tell you, I am, we've talked about this a few times, always in passing, and I do watch your podcasts, and you have evolved into
Thank you, Millie.
something really, really great. And what you do is even more powerful. It's just the legacy and the memories. And I know you were young, but you know what you have done here is pretty special.
I appreciate it.
Pretty special.
Yeah, it's weird where it's at now because I'm gonna get like woo about it, but sometimes I've said recently like it feels like I'm being carried through this, where like I truly feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, as fickle as the word "supposed to" should be, but it just makes sense. I don't know why, and every episode is not about me. Like obviously the why is about me, and it's been very helpful for me in many ways. But now what the platform has gotten, it's like it's real, and so I'm really noticing the impact it's actually happening when I get those messages, and it's reassuring. You know what I mean? It's bigger than me. It's now it serves a real purpose, and hopefully, it's helping a lot of people. It's creating dialogues. A lot of my conversations are about grief, which we're going to get into. But then I explore like the religious aspect, the spiritual aspect, which I think is a big part of it, and that creates a lot of divisiveness. I've noticed. Like when it comes to like the afterlife or religion, a lot of disagreeing there. But the disagreeing, people can get really negative with the disagreeing. But the way I see it, I'm hoping for people to slowly start learning is it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have the conversation and just be open-minded to what other people think. You don't have to buy into it. But like, okay, that's cool. But then I just when I dive into the comment section, I see a lot of people just taking it very personal, get offended when someone doesn't believe in God or this, that, and the other. And if in my head, it's like, okay, well, if the other person's happy with where they're at, then
I mean, you're right. That part of it is it shouldn't be part of what you're trying to do. How you believe and how you feel, how we feel. It's it's okay to disagree.
That's the thing. It's okay to disagree.
But I do tell you. I mean, listen. There was a time where I just never wanted to talk about this day. I mean, it was just. Again, I know it's been almost a quarter of a century, but I was telling my nephew yesterday that I was doing this, and he said, you weren't right after that. And you know what? And I wasn't. I don't think many people were. You weren't. Your mom, your sisters, your aunt, your uncle, no one was right. But it was, but over time, I think love and trust and family just, helps pull it all together. But I was thinking about it on the train ride here. Just that morning, it was a morning like today. It was a crisp blue sky morning. Take the train, get off at the trades at Newark, take path to the Trade Center, come up that escalator that was a mile long in a conference room. No windows. It was like this room, but there was no windows, a small table, 3 guys. The lights flicker. One of our admin assistants open up the door and say there was an explosion at the top of the tower. And we faced Church Street, which is why we faced Church Street here as well. And there was some debris we saw the debris falling onto Church Street, metal. So right away you think it was some HVAC or something. But we gathered the team, and you know what? We just figured it was just best to leave. We were on the 4th floor, so for us it was very easy to get down, and we did. And the 3 guys that were in the room, Steve and Greg and myself, we went to a bar. It was a bar on Washington Street, looking at a little box TV, looking up at it, and they already had the camera on the accident, and they were saying it was a Cessna. A Cessna accidentally went into the into the Trade Center. And, we were watching it on TV for a few minutes because it didn't take us long to get down and into the bar. And then when the second one hit, we all realized that it wasn't a Cessna, it wasn't an HVAC issue, it was an attack. And at that point, the three of us just dispersed and we just went our own ways. I remember walking to Wall Street and Broadway and stood there and just watched this disaster, this horrible, horrific day. And I knew where your dad worked. I knew where, I knew he was at work that day. We always spoke constantly. I knew when he wasn't going in, when he was coming in, whatever. So the first thing that comes to your mind is 105th floor. He probably didn't know at that point, or he did, and you know what? They were just trying to figure out, what to do next. I can't imagine what it was like up there. I stood there for a few minutes. There's this guy standing next to me. I have no wallet because I had a backpack, which I left on the floor in the office. All I had was my phone, but there was no service anymore at that time. And I didn't have money. I didn't have my ID. I didn't have anything. And side note, for many years, I was getting notices that I'm sorry for your loss, because they found, when they did find my license, they thought that I was, my remains were never found. And it took years, until I had corrected the records, because my wallet was in my in my briefcase. So I had no money. So there I am on Wall and Broadway watching this right in front of Trinity Church. And there's a lot of people just standing there. And you think about, we were like a tourist looking at these two buildings just, imploding. And there's a guy standing next to me, and I said, dude, can I grab a cigarette from you? I don't have any money. I stopped smoking, but I'm going to have one today. And he offers me a Newport Light. And I said, well, thank you. I would prefer a Marlboro, but I'll take a Newport Light. And then around whatever time it was, a little before 10, when the building collapsed, that's when we just all just dispersed. So I ran down Wall Street to the FDR Drive. And that's when the cloud caught up to me, because I couldn't run as fast as that cloud was when the first tower collapsed. And I was full of soot and whatever else, dust that was there. And we walked, no cell service. So, we didn't know. I did know a few people in the Trade Center, but I didn't, again, there was no way of communicating. They directed us over the Brooklyn Bridge, and there was People magazine had great photos of us, just thousands of people just walking out of the city, into Brooklyn. I made my way to Hamilton Avenue. I don't know, again, it was just in a daze. I didn't know where I was going at that time. I hadn't reached anybody, but on Hamilton and I don't know, somewhere in Red Hook, this second guy appears next to me, because by that point I was pretty much alone. There weren't a lot of people. We all went separate ways when we got over the Brooklyn Bridge. And again, I had grubbed my second cigarette that day, and it just so happened to be a Newport Light. I couldn't be funny, as I would prefer a Marlboro, but it was a Newport Light. And we did finally get cell service, and my cousin's kids were on Ocean Parkway, and they said, listen, we can't go any further, but we can pick you up on Ocean Parkway and Beverly Road. And that's where I ended up walking to from downtown. Got in a car. I said, somebody's got to have some money, and you better go buy me a pack of cigarettes. And my niece Lisa said, Uncle Augie, I have a cigarette, but don't tell my mom I smoke. And I said, Lisa, your secret is good with me. Just give me the cigarette. And it just so happened to be a Newport Light. It's and I know I've shared this with you before, and you were kind enough. Actually, I should have worn my Newport Light shirt today, but I didn't want to. So I had 3 cigarettes that day. I hadn't had a Newport Light since. I haven't smoked since, other than a cigar every now and then. But ended up getting home, and it was it's funny. We went to work on September 12th. They put us up in Midtown until our DR site was ready in Piscataway. And we were up on the 20-some-odd floor. And I'll never forget that afternoon, there was a bomb scare in that building. And we had to come down, 26 flights. And it was, everyone came to work. But, there was one guy I'll never forget. It was just between 9/11 and getting that bomb scare at 1251, 6th Avenue. I never saw him again. I tried to reach out, but it was just too much. Worked in Piscataway, and I'd tried to get back to normal, but it never got normal. I think about your dad regularly, constantly. I met him in 71. I was thinking about it today. It was almost over 50 years ago. You think about it, 50 years ago. We were brothers for 30 of those years. And it was funny, when I first met him, it was just like one of those chemistry things. He was born on February 11th. I was born on March 11th. He had an older sister. I had an older sister. His dad was a shoemaker in Sheepshead Bay. My dad was a barber in Sheepshead Bay. His mom worked in the city. My mom worked in the city. They never owned homes. They always rented. My parents rented. Your parents rented. Your grandparents rented. So it was one of those things that we just had this connection from the, kind of from the beginning. It was pretty amazing, and we were, we were, inseparable, and with for many years, and when he met your mom, and I'll never forget, she had your dad's name drawn on her sneakers, so it was someone that she's always had a thing for, and again, I was his best man, and he was mine. He's Michael's godfather. I'm Jacqueline's godfather. So that's
beautiful.
It is beautiful, and I'll say this now. I mean, it's before I've said to you earlier, if my voice gets lower, it's because it's going to start to crack. You and your sisters and your mother, they are my family. I mean, it is. And you know what? And God forbid if it was ever the other way, I always think he would do the same. He would be somewhere in my shoes somehow. It was just that unwritten law that we had, with each other. You're going to just, take care of us. And you know what? But you are. I know I'm important to you guys, but you are equally as important to me, and I say that from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, Jesus, it's too early for me to cry right now.
No, it is a little early.
No, but that's why you're sitting next to me right now. It means a lot that you're not only willing to talk to me, but I just know you've always been a staple in our life, as you just expressed, and in ways that I don't even know, beyond what I do know, being a man now. But I just know you were a vital part with being beside my mom during those times and stories that she shared. But before I get into that, I want to ask you. First, I didn't even know you went back to work the next day. That's I know the world keeps spinning,
Yeah.
and the city keeps going, but it's wild to me that you had to go right back to work as if everything was normal, even though it wasn't. But do you remember anything in regards to communication with my mom, or like that first week of, like, did you know my dad wasn't going to survive? I know you said you looked up, he's on the 105th floor, you started contemplating, maybe calculating or something, but at what point did you realize my dad wasn't going to get out of the building?
Yeah, it was, there was these theories or these hopes that, people were able to get out, but, may have had some type of memory loss and didn't know where they were. And, I remember listening to, to Jacqueline on the news, he had a cross, and, it was just, it was all of this. But if you think back of of what actually had happened, and were there some people that were able to get out that maybe were on lower floors? Yeah, there were, but at the end of the day, I think your mom knew. But she was one of the most. She is the strongest woman that I know. I mean, and she kept it together as best anyone can. I'm sure she had her moments when she was alone, but certainly, you had to get back to school. It was no, we just needed, we'll get therapy, whatever we need to do, but you guys need life. I kind of realized, David, just to answer your question, you always hope that there's this miracle out there, but if you think about what we witnessed and the terrible destruction, humanly, it just became within a few days. It was obvious that something bad had happened. It was, I used to call his number all the time, just as for years later, and Jacqueline and I had a laugh about it because I thought I had the right number, but just no, because she remembered the number.
Mm-hmm. Jacqueline's my older sister, for everyone that doesn't know the context. But.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'll never forget when we met. We started on Wall Street. We were messengers. We both went to Lincoln High School. We met in our junior year, which I think that was in '71. We met in kind of a homeroom class because New York City schools were somewhat overcrowded back then, and they had morning session and afternoon session. I had the morning session, so at 7 I was in, and 12 I was out. He had the afternoon session, and we kind of met. There was this little crossover period where we first met, and after a few months that I had got this job as a messenger down on Wall Street, I asked him, if he wanted to come work, but he had the late session, and we needed to get early, so he had to do a hardship, with the guidance counselors and whatever, and I'll never forget, your grandmother shows up with a fur coat, and here we are. She's got to be hardship. My son has to go to work, and he says, "Ma, what are you doing with the fur coat?" She says, "What do you want from me? It's the only coat I have." So it's so we kind of use that as our hardship. She only has one coat. It happens to be a fur coat, but you know what? Let's just. But he did end up getting the hardship, and we were able to, do our early session thing. So at noon we were out of there. We were on the F train. We were down at 100 Church Street. We worked for this company called SPS. It was a division of W.E. Hutton and Company, and it was a brand new company. There might be 30 or 40 people. So we got in at the ground level. They loved us. We were invited to picnics. We were invited to people's homes because it was just a small company. We worked the summers, full time in the office, and when we graduated, I thought I was going to go to Baruch, and he went to, I want to say something called DeVry, the DeVry Institute of Technology. Back then technology was this word that,
This word, it's so bizarre.
Because you think about it, it's just we didn't, there were no PCs. If it was a PC, it was a
car.
But and he ended up there, and again, I couldn't wait to get out of my classes, and we met at work, and we pretty much had full-time jobs, even though we were going to school full-time. So it was, needless to say, school never really had a priority with us, and I was there 13 years. So think about joining there in 71, 72. He left earlier to get into the broker side of the business, which was I give him credit for it. He was pretty bold when it came to that because he didn't have the education, and even through 9/11. He was an interdealer broker, which is a pretty, back in the day. Now it's a lot of black box. You push a button and things get done. But back then it was a very people-oriented job, and he was dealing with Wharton grads, with MBAs, and it didn't faze him. He connected with them with his body and with his diet and being able to work out with them. He had that sense of humor that was very welcoming, even to someone who's just probably grew up with a silver spoon and liked that that level that, they were dealing with. And he was very effective at what he did. And if you give him credit, it's somewhat biblical if you think about, David with these, with these Goliaths. And you know what? And he was able to, he didn't slay them, but they embraced him. And he became very successful. When he joined Cantor, I mean, it was because they wanted him to join Cantor. They wanted, his clients were traders from Goldman Sachs, from Morgan Stanley, the big banks. So and they wanted him at Cantor, and he had an opportunity, and he ended up running the desk, which was pretty impressive from someone who just didn't complete 4 years of college. So it was, but he had that ability to connect with all levels. I mean, he was it could have been a 12-year-old kid. It could have been, someone who was homeless, or it could have been to what I just described, these pretty, successful, Wall Street traders that he was, and it was them. He was working out with them in the morning, and because he was older than many of them, some of them were in their 20s, and he was, and you knew how he was when. I mean, he was in the best shape of his life in his 40s. So it was. But it's pretty impressive how he was able to kind of take that change, because we were in operations, and to make that switch to to that front office type job, which was it took a toll on him too. A lot of entertaining, because it's all about schmoozing and whatever. But he was very successful at it. He did a great job.
Yeah, and I used to think, because I remember the schmoozing aspect, he has to take people out to dinners and all that, and that was part of the reason why I thought I wanted to do his job. It was the entertaining aspect, because I always felt like, I feel like I can do that. Like, I like talking to people, this and that. I didn't understand what the hell he was doing at the desk. I don't know what trading was, but I always remember that aspect of him taking people out to dinner, and I always found interest in that because I like going out with people. I like talking, having conversations, and I always thought I'd be good at that. But I do want to transition in regards to, because you were talking about how he made his way up, and I do recall, I don't know if you were involved in this or how I learned about it. I mean, my mom told me, but he was given, I think he was in line for a bonus or some kind of improvement in his pay. Like he got some kind of promotion that was supposed to come up. And this part of the story always, it's very convoluted, because the whole thing with 9/11, which I never really contemplated till later in my life, like the political aspect of it and the logistics of, I guess, the compensation that was coming to some of the families. And a lot of that process was determining who I don't know if deserves the right word, but who was going to get X amount of money, the firefighters, and what everyone's value was of their life. And that's when it starts getting, that's the weird part of it. Like, obviously, people lose their lives and there's no compensation, and we just happen to be in a situation where there was money coming that's going to be involved. But it was weird to hear that he finally made it to a point of his life after working so hard, kind of in a not American dream type way, but a guy that had to work it from ground up, or they didn't finish college, and he finally got to a level where he was going to get a pay raise, a significant pay bump, which I think I saw in the paperwork. It was a massive jump compared to what he was making. It was like just that was like the big move career-wise, where he's going to make some real money. And that was supposed to take place sometime later that year or after 9/11. And then when it came to the situation of determining what their worth was based on what they were making, from my understanding, that wasn't going to be factored in because it was all lost. All the records, it wasn't, I guess there was no paper trail determining he was going to get this promotion. Was that something that my mom knew? Like, how did she find? Was that something you knew about?
Yeah.
And that was part of the process? Like, I'm not making it about money, but it's just the complicated aspect of what my mom and had to go through.
Well, I mean, your mom didn't want to even have that conversation.
That's another part. My mom didn't. She didn't want to touch the money. She didn't want to touch it.
It was blood money. It was, I don't want it. I don't need it. It took a while, to try and not, I don't want to say convince her, but it was about, it was about you and Jacqueline and Gina at that time. It was more her realizing that she wants to just put this behind her, all right? Because there was this chance of having, additional lawsuits down the road with Saudi Arabia and all that, but it would have lingered for years, decades, if nothing else. But you're spot on. He did get a promotion to the head of the desk, which was going to take effect shortly after 9/11. But there was no record of it. You're right; those records were destroyed. And the way the Feinberg and the government did it, Feinberg was I forget the title they gave him. He was the one that was put in charge of the compensation fund. That he met individually with the families. It was just an algorithm. It was based on your age. It was based on your prior, past 3 years' income. It was, if you had insurance, it was deducted from that. I mean, it was just a horrific, calculation. And the original amount, I believe, that was, offered to your mom was based on this A plus B plus C minus D, and that was it. And it did not factor in the fact that his future earnings were going to be significantly higher than his past 3 years' earnings. And let's not use the last 3 years as projecting for the forward. And part of a letter that we wrote to Feinberg described that. And he wanted to put this behind the government as much as the families wanted to put it behind them as well. And he did agree, and he did, recalculate. I don't remember what the final amount was, but your mother did agree forcefully, but did agree, and me and Jacqueline went, and she read a letter opening. She wanted to speak first, and she brought a letter.
My mom
your mom?
My mom, okay.
Read this letter about the lack of importance of what we were doing here today, and it meant nothing, and that it's not going to change anything. This government award, but she powered through that letter. And Feinberg was, listen, they try and be as compassionate as they can. They did review the notes that we had sent prior to at least acknowledge that future earnings should not be determined on the past 3 years, but they should be determined on, on what would have been. He would have been awarded, bonuses based on the success of the desk and the bottom line. So, he wasn't just a broker on the desk; he was going to be running the desk. So, you're right. It was something that we did share, and it did help, and that to keep that legacy. But it was not easy. Your mother was pretty determined that she didn't want it, but you know what? In the end, if it's something that you and Jacqueline and Gina and his grandchildren, and son-in-laws have a benefit of, then that's the only good thing that comes from it.
Yeah, and that's why I bring it up. Again, it's not me bringing it up because of the money. It's just something that I didn't contemplate, know about, or understand. Again, I was 12 growing up, and it was something I learned many years later that it even existed. That was money was never even a thought process. No. It just adds to the complication of not only the general grief process. This is a very specific example, but there's so many moving parts when it does come to when you lose someone. And not that long ago, maybe a couple trips, I think earlier this year, before we got the tattoos, quick little plug. So my dad, which I mentioned on the podcast, was known for saying, "Hey kid." He would say, "Hey kid" for everyone. So you got me and my Uncle Augie got matching tattoos. I can't lift your leg. That's too much skin for this episode. But we got matching tattoos that said, "Hey kid." So that's just a quick little funny story that we had. But again, it was just not something I contemplated. And the reason I mentioned the tattoos, because we were looking through old documents because my sisters wanted to get the tattoo of my dad's signature. So I was working through my mom. She saves everything. We're going through old documents to look for my dad's signature. And that's when I started I saw my dad's death certificate for the first time. That was just weird. And besides that, I started seeing paperwork that actually was mentioning something about his financials and what he was making, and then something along the lines of what we just discussed. And I just started unraveling letters and stuff my mom had to go through, and just the behind the scenes stuff that comes with this process. Yes, specific to 9/11, but also it can relate to a lot of people that are listening that have to deal with this shit when someone dies. The logistics, the financials, the insurance, the just how is this the one that's left over going to make money? There's just so much stuff that comes with it that just you think about the grief process as an emotional toll, of course, but then there's this logistics that add to the emotional toll. And then what complicates the 9/11 scenarios is exactly what we just discussed. And that's why I bring it up, because it just shows even more of what my mom had to experience and endure through, besides raising kids, besides continuing to work on her own and like everything. And she just started her job at that point, like days before 9/11. And I'll never forget, and my mom's brought up a lot of the story you said, that when she talked to you, she said exactly what you told me was, I didn't fucking want that. I didn't want to touch it. It was, she called it blood money. She didn't want it. She didn't want it. It did, again, as you just explained even more thoroughly, it wasn't going to change anything, even though of course money helps, especially as a single mother, of course it helps. But she always brought up the conversation that you had, and you know, you weren't trying to persuade her, but you were kind of just giving her otherly advice of what the money could mean and how it could help. And you were the conversation that did sway her to look past beyond, I don't want to say ego, but like that she didn't care about it. I understand for her not to, it says a lot about my mom that she didn't give a shit about the money. She would have been fine having to do whatever she had to do to make it work regardless. And I know she would have, and whatever the amount was, she didn't want the money. And I just, that conversation just shows the involvement of how much of a consigliere, if you will, you are to my family, that you're the guy that's even going to be involved in that conversation. Yeah. So for me, it's just illustrating not only the layers that come with this experience, but just who you are in our life. You know what I mean? It's a sensitive conversation. So for my mom to have put the trust into you to even be involved in that, it's like you're family.
No, I am, and you are. So it's and I'm honored that you're the uncle aspect of this, because it is it does mean a lot to me. And you know, and I know if your dad were here, that he would be uncle. So
and that's the beautiful part about it, 'cause it's one of those things you're never going to know, but you know. It's like it's always the shoe on the other foot. It's like when it's one of those things that people say, the old age cliche. It's like, listen, if the shoe was on the other foot, I know you do the same thing for me. And that's the beautiful part about the relationship that you have with my dad, and also this flip side of it, that's the painful part, because that's what you had and now you no longer have. But outside of that, I am curious about what did you what did you endure personally? Because we never really we've shared stories and whatnot, but I never really understood what you had to endure losing a best friend.
Yeah, it was, there's that part of you that there's that, you make the sign of the cross that you're okay, but then there's the other part of you that I dealt with that, why me? I mean, and it just was very, you have that kind of guilt inside that that you survived. And, but it was, it was, it was difficult, but I guess the having the extended family with you and your sisters and your mom, it kept it. I mean, this keeps it alive, us talking about it and him, and, I have in my house, there's it says, how about Tuesday? It's above our phone, because it was just.
You have to explain that.
It was just one of those things. Like, we'd go out. I mean, this is like for decades. We can just go out to a bar and have a good time. It was great. We should do this again. And it was, how about Tuesday? And it just lived. It had its own life. Like, we would all just say, we had a great time tonight, we should do it again. And everybody would say, well, how about Tuesday? So it was. So for Christmas a few years ago, I have this thing over my desk, over my phone, a landline phone, which I don't know why we still have, but it's in the kitchen, and it says, how about Tuesday? So we have the Hey Kid, we have, how about Tuesday? And, it's just one of those things. I remember, when your mom was ready for closure, we had a mass at St. Leo's, and you wore your pants down at your hips back then. I don't know. Do you still wear it down there?
No.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, we're good. I grew up in it. I was like a little suburban ghetto kid. I don't know how that was about, but it is what it is.
And she said to me, I think Carlo, her brother, said a few words, and I want to remember. I think John did. Uncle John did as well.
I believe so, yeah.
And she said to me, be quick, be light, and we just got to get out of here, type of thing. Not to rush it, but it was just what she just wanted. She wanted that that hour, and then we just we needed to just kind of now we just got to just turn the page, and I remember referring to "Hey kid" to the priest because I probably said he probably would call you kid because that's how he was.
Hopefully not the priest. I don't know. That's
I
a
don't know.
sensitive word.
I wouldn't see that as being
No, it was a bad joke. It was a bad joke. The kid, it's a whole other conversation.
But he was what if he forgot your name? First of all, because he forgot your name. So let's call a spade a spade. He did it because he forgot who you were. So,
I do that too. Yeah, I do that too. It's a little. Everyone thinks it's endearing. It's like I just don't know who the hell you are.
Right, exactly. So it was "Hey kid." So it was that. But actually, it was funny. We talk about my ink. We don't call them tattoos, right? They're called ink.
Yeah.
So it is a little higher than I like. And I was talking to my Natalie, my wife, and she said, "Well, you should go and get. How about Tuesday underneath it? This way, it'll be the whole gamut."
You
so
should do that.
I'm going to do that.
If
you want to come,
I'll definitely. Maybe I'll get the same tattoo again. Might as well even it out. I'll do the same exact
so
thing.
at least when I wear shorts, they don't just see half of the
The
Y
Yeah.
and the K. What is that? So I got to pick up my leg. But now they'll be able to see it, or I'll just start wearing shorter shorts.
Let's get the extra. We don't have to wear shorter shorts. But it's funny you bring up that sort of church ceremony, that the first one we had. 'Cause a lot I don't remember, but the one thing that always stood out to me was after the mass, everyone kind of gathered in whatever the next area was, and I'll never forget seeing my friends, like the young girlfriends that were there, my guy friends. And I remember seeing my friend Jamie at the time crying, and then I'll never forget seeing my buddy JJ, who was part of the Little League team. Knew the whole crew knew my dad very well. He was, if he wasn't helping coaching, he was at the game, so he knew all those kids. And I remember just sitting there. I don't even think I was crying. I just see JJ hysterically crying, and it's just another 12-year-old kid. It wasn't his father. It was my dad. But it still gives me the chills even thinking about it because that was the first time I recognized just like the impact of it, that here's one of my best friends at the time crying over my dad. And it was, I don't even know the words how to explain it. It was a whole smorgasbord of just understanding the impact that my dad had on him, the impact that people can just have on someone else, no matter if it's blood relations or not. And also just the impact of the moment. Like I obviously understood what was going on, but something about that experience, seeing another young boy cry, and again, not being his father, always made me very emotional and just really kind of, I don't know, sobered me up in many ways. Just like witnessing that. It was just a very powerful moment to see another kid cry over my father.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was about that outside of what I just explained, but that's one of the things that always stuck with me. And there's so many things I forget that I don't remember that I wish I did. My mom always said to me, is maybe just some things you're just not supposed to remember. Like, what's it going to serve for you? And just is the natural response for being such a traumatic event. But it's fascinating the things that I do remember, like why that moment stood out to me. And it's like I still see it in my head today.
Yeah. I mean, you were quiet. I mean, I do remember. I mean, I try to go maybe once a week. I would just try and stop by just to help with the mail or whatever questions your mom may have had. And you were pretty quiet. Gina was as well. Jacqueline was always talked. I mean, it was just that was her. And whether it was a nervous or whatever, she always was very. I think the relationship that your mom and her have as part of this, it was just it just certainly strengthened with all of you. But I do remember that you were. Listen, I can't imagine what it's like at your age having your life just literally turned upside down. I mean, it was. I mean, everybody. You don't want to, and you think about let's even talk about your grandmother for a moment. I mean, losing a son has got to be the most, or child, the most difficult thing to do. And you know what? She was. She too was very, very strong. And I've said this to you before. And when we were kids. I mean, she was the kind of the household, right? She was the.
You could say
we were we would call her Ann the man and Frank the woman because it was that's how that household was. Frank, right? It was okay. And you had her two sisters, the girls, which were
Yep.
they never married and were part of that foursome. I mean, it wasn't. But it was, that was growing up. I mean, we'd get drunk and, we would wear, back in the 70s, we had heels that were like this. And I'll never forget one night we went to some bar on Avenue U, and your dad was going to try and drive me home. I don't know where my car was. And he falls down the stairs, and your grandfather's on the top of the stairs calling him a wino. You're a wino. I got a son for a wino son. And it was just, it was just some stories of, they football, with Charlie and Patsy and Vito and Joey, and I don't see them anymore. Joey's the only one that Joey Petito. I mean, certainly with with his brother, we still, he still does our taxes. I think he's, but you know what? As long as he's that connection also that we have to the old neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's funny how it's evolved. Because I love hearing when we talk, and we talk about other things, obviously, but when you share stories, it's not. I love hearing it because my connection to you in particular is like you knew my dad for so long. You knew him growing up. You knew him at a different level than I ever knew, which is part of sometimes the hardest part, especially now. I've said this before, but it's now being a grown man at 36 years old at the time this is recorded. Obviously, it's like shit. Like, yeah, I knew my dad until I was 12. I only knew my dad as a boy. I never got to know him as a man.
Right.
You know what I mean? He only knew me as a boy. He never got to know me as a man. He never got to know who I became. He never got to know who I am now. And I never got to hear those stories of who he really was. I knew who he was from my vantage point, but like I want to know like what trouble did he get into? What maybe things like weren't the best parts about it? What was he like? And even I have a good grasp on it thanks to like stories that you share and the way that I knew him. But now hearing stories, it's there's still that wink of a sadness, of course. Like it's like I don't even know how to describe it. Like when I hear stories, it's in part sadness, but it's like a happy sadness. You know what I mean? It's like it's a little like my shoulders cringe and I feel it in my stomach, but it makes me happy. It's like it's a happy sadness. I don't know how else to say it. It's like I want. Like, some people avoid the stories. I know. I've seen it a lot. People have explained to me they don't want to share the stories because it brings up a pain. But for me, I found like a companionship with the pain because that pain is a reminder of my dad, which can be a double-sided but a double-sided obstacle when it comes to the grief process because some people don't want to detach from the pain because they feel like if they don't feel the pain, they're not connected to this person anymore. Right. So it becomes like the pain is a comfort. But it's a balancing act to me of finding comfort in that pain, but not sitting in the pain, if that makes sense. So now my whole point of this is like every time I hear, you share stories, I want to hear that because it gives me an opportunity to learn about my father. And now that I've missed most of my life without him, I love the opportunities to continue to learn about him. You know what I mean? So it's like it's almost like a new memory. It's like a new experience I didn't get to live, but that's why I love it so much. So it's painful, but it's a happy pain. And I'm able to detach myself from this consistent pain, which I think is part of the healing process. But it's like as much as that you think inherently you want to remove yourself from the pain, these stories bring you back to the pain in almost like a healthier way, as weird as that sounds. And I got a call from one of my childhood friends, Ronnie. His father, I guess, recently found out I had this podcast. I had no idea. I haven't talked to him in decades. I used to be at his house all the time as a kid. And he texted me or called me. I called him back, and we started talking for 30 minutes. And he was just sharing stories. And it's like that is my connection to my dad right now. And again, to learn new things, even if I can hear the same story about him over and over again, and it brings up a certain feeling that I love. And again, that mix between gratefulness and happiness and sadness, but it's a good sweet spot. So it's like sometimes you want to remove the pain, but sometimes the pain could be a good thing because that pain is attached to someone you love. It's just a matter of how you look at that pain. And I think that's one of the biggest transformations to me. It's not looking at the pain as just pain and misery and suffering. It's like this pain is the price of love. I love my father so much. So it's like, I'll take that pain. And then someone also asked me, I'm going on a tangent now, but someone asked me a question like, would you rather not, like, for instance, in my particular case, would you rather not have had your dad at all or go through what you've had to go through? And it's like, it's an easy choice. You know, it's like people we suffer through this pain and some people say, oh, there's no meaning to life anymore. How could I live with this, that, and the other? It's like, okay, but would you rather go through what you're going through now and figure it out, or never have had anything you've had at all.
I mean, I don't even see that as even an option.
Right. It's not even an option. It's more just shedding light on, I think, the perspective of what you're going through in many ways. As silly as a question as that can be, because I understand the silliness of it, like, obviously, but that's part of it. It's like, so it just redefines the pain in many ways. And I think that is a part of the process of going through it is understanding what that pain means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, if I think about, if I think about him and you, I mean, he defined free spirit. I mean, I think, and you've got that as well. I mean, it's, the fact that you moved to California and, started this from just probably in your apartment and how it's evolved today and, getting into real estate. And he defined free spirit. Always wanted to push the envelope. I mean, we could have been playing softball, and I mean, he used to drive your grandfather's 1966 Pontiac Le Mans. This thing never saw a coat of wax in its life. It was like the cars of today that are that matte finish. Yeah. It was matte finish back in the 70s. And we were in a bar once, and there's two guys sitting on the hood, and he wanted to fight them because they were sitting on the hood. And he comes in to get us to go fight. And I remember Mike Nova was part of it. Mike, David, what the fuck? We're not going to go out there. Look at that car. I mean, if they're sitting on a Benz or a BMW, but let them sit on it.
What am I doing it a favor? Yeah.
What am I doing a favor? But it was just that free spirit. I remember we were in, just working one day. We're in an elevator, and these two Brinks guys come in, and one of them has a suitcase. The other one has his hand on his gun, and he says, "Hey, you ever use that?" And the guy looks at him and goes, "You got a dick. You ever use that?" I mean, it was just one of those things. Like, he was just very, very, wanted to just be that joke of the. But that's how he got to people to embrace him. It was. And clothes was never an option. I mean, he just, if he wore clothes, it's because
he had to. Yeah, but for those that don't know, my dad was known for tank tops, shorts, and sometimes mostly no shirt.
Right.
But it's it's weird. So I whenever I post a photo of my dad, and I think growing up, I feel like I was like a hybrid of people. I don't know who I looked like. I had the mouth of Uncle Frankie, and my upper face looked like so and so, and then. As I get older, I hear it all the time. Like, oh my God, you look just like your father. And the more I look at, I see photos of me now and maybe certain photos of my dad. I'm like, oh shit, I do see myself. I see a lot, like my legs, my hand. Like I see myself in my father. And then when I hear stories like that, like part of me wants to get you in a room with, especially my California friends, like a lot of my friends, and you share these stories, because the more I hear it, it's not me forcing to be like my dad, but when you share stories like that, I'm like, oh my God, I do the same shit. When you say push the envelope, part of me, I just love messing around with people. I love making it awkward for someone. I love making a stupid comment, not because I'm stupid, just because I like the reaction.
Right.
Like I get a kick out of the reaction, like evoking some sort of emotion, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's a weird joke. I don't know what it is about that. To me, it's breaking the ice. I think when I make a stupid joke or I do these little antics that I do, very similar to some of the stories that I've heard. In part, it's for my own amusement, selfishly, but also when I do this, and even in business situations, maybe not be appropriate. I have to bite my tongue sometimes, but to me, it just breaks an ice, and it lowers the temperature of when something's to be serious. Mm-hmm. And some people might look at it as like a coping mechanism in certain situations, but to me, it's like showing like I can be a silly person, and then it takes the load off them. And from that breaking the ice, it just opens up a whole new relationship between you and that person, whatever. Yeah. Plenty of times it backfires. I've been there too, where it's like this, that didn't work at all, and I'm the joke of it. But when I hear these stories, like you mentioned, I heard when I got a call from my friend's father who was sharing those stories I mentioned. He told me a story when they used to commute to work. I guess one of my toys was in the car, and it was like one of those things where you hang on to the bottom of it, and it was a claw, a hand, like a robotic hand, so you can move your fingers and control like the toy claw. And he said every time he used to go to the toll, he used to grab it, put the money in the claw, and then pass the money through the toy claw to the toll guy. And the toll guy was like, what the heck? He would be like the only one laughing, but then there's no reason for that joke, but it would just be a funny thing amongst them. And it just explained, like, once he told me that, I was like, oh my God, that is something I would do. I know.
Well, so there were a few times where we were penniless, right? But yet we thought we can go through toll booths. And we did. There was before the arms and before cameras and whatever. And it was like, but we were a friend of ours opened a restaurant once. We was somewhere in maybe near King's Plaza. It was an Italian restaurant. We went there. There must have been 6 or 8 of us at the table, and we met the chef and whatever. Chef comes out, takes our order, and your dad orders, linguine and clam sauce, and he says, "I like it spicy." So the chef says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how spicy do you want it? He says, "Well, I want it 12." So the chef says, "Okay." Takes the rest of our orders. Linguine and clam sauce comes out with the rest of our dinners. And you see the chef standing on the side like this. And your dad tried to eat it. He tried because he wasn't going to give in to this chef. He wasn't going to give in to the 12. But he started to sweat. It was so bad that he had to say, but that was him. He said, I want a 12. Oh, you do? Okay. But that was him. It was the best. I mean, again, when I was saying when he was a kid, I mean, he didn't have the body that he had in his 30s and 40s. I mean, he was a scrawny little kid. They used to call him Mouse because he was just so small. With his red bangs that came down to here. He was, but he was, he brought life into a room, and it was something that, he did, and it's one of the reasons why it is the reason why we're in Middletown, because your mom and dad moved there after they left Staten Island, and I was in Tampa from 93 to 98, and then when we came back, I didn't want to. We were living in Marlboro, and I didn't want to deal with that bus on Route 9, and so I said, maybe we'll move up to Bergen County. It'll be a quicker commute to Manhattan, and it was just older homes, and your father kept saying, "Come to Middletown, come to Middletown," and we ended up, and then that's where we ended up, which is I'm so grateful today, and Middletown really suffered a lot on 9/11, and I know you've been to the memorial near the train station. Which is pretty amazing what they've done. I've been there a few times. I haven't been there in about a year or so. I used to put a cigar on, on top of the that granite stone that's there. But it is pretty amazing what the town has done. And but I have there's stories that my wedding, his suit came, the legs were this long. They sent him the wrong suit. The zipper was broken, and he talked about the test of time in his speech at my wedding, how our friendship has withstood the test of time, and how he wanted his wish for Natalie and I was to withstand that test of time. So it has, and again we can be as however corny we want, but this is a test of time. So it has. His words were so true. It's
well, I in regards to that transition of a test of time. Now that it's been 25 years, where do you find yourself today with it? Like, is there anything that you feel like you, outside of what you already said, is there anything that you feel like you still contemplate or are in that experience, or do you feel like you found peace with it?
It's I don't think you'll ever find peace with it, to be honest with you, David. I think it's very, it's history now. It's a dark memory, but having that connection that always takes us back there is, I think, what has helped me become, okay with it. His pictures around, your pictures around. I mean, it's just very, but you're never okay with it. I don't think you'll ever be okay with it. I don't think it's just, but to say that, is it cliche to say, well, life goes on? Yes, life does go on. It has to. It has to go on, and we do the best to keep the memories, and and you've done a great job of it, and I admire you for it.
I appreciate it. Uncle Augie, you're the best. I love you so much.
Same.
And I was excited to do this. I'm glad we made this happen. It just feels like a conversation at the bar, like we've done plenty of times. Yes. We have to do it again very soon. But I appreciate you taking the time. This is your first podcast, right?
It's my first podcast. I do have something for you.
Uh-oh. Is it a cigarette we're going to light up?
Yeah. This is used to be the wall of the Trade Center from ceiling to floor. And my cousin was down at Ground Zero and had picked that up for me. And I want you to have it.
They put this stuff in the rubble? You've had this entire time?
Yeah, I want you to have it.
You sure?
You rub it.
You sure? Thank you, Uncle Augie. Isn't it weird? Like it's
kind of a weird thing to, it's a rock, but it was the wall of the Trade Center. It was.
But it's funny because you look at it, it's just a rock, but this holds a lot in it. You okay letting this go?
Mm-hmm. I want you to have it.
Well, I'm gonna put it right next to the glasses that you gave me. So you're giving me a whole collection right now. It's gonna be a fucking sanctuary.
I got more, but I want to.
You gotta keep some for yourself.
I do. I will.
Thank you, Uncle.
You're welcome. I love you, buddy.
It's gonna let me do TSA with this shit, right? It's the World Trade Center.
Well, it's funny when I had to go through security downstairs. I'm saying no, it can't be. It won't come up.
No, this means a lot. It's funny you said that. Not funny. That's the wrong word again. I said it 12 times. But some guy messaged me from Reddit. Random guy. I guess he knew of the podcast, and someone sent a letter that they found, I guess, in the debris, and it was some kind of letterhead that says Cantor Fitzgerald. It was like in perfect tact, a piece of paper from Cantor Fitzgerald, obviously the company that my dad was at. And some guy messaged me, hey, you might want to reach out to this guy. He's like, I don't know if I should keep it. He's had it forever. And I connected with this guy in Reddit, and he's like, I live in Brooklyn. He's out of town now. He's going to give me that piece of paper. And after the piece of paper, it's like one of those things where it's like hanging on to certain things, this or that, but like little things like this is just, it's material that inherently could mean nothing, but this is a part of that day.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
It's a part. It's literally a part of that day, and it's.
It's something. You rub that. I mean, that's because I do it. That's.
Yeah, and it's something that you lose someone that, like my dad that can't physically touch anymore, or physically hug or anything like that. It's like this is just a little something material that I can attach to something that's intangible. Thank you so much. That means a lot. I love you so much, guys. Thanks for being part of this.
Thank you. This was my first.
This is first.
How do I look?
You look pretty damn good. You put the glasses on.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, at the end. Okay. All right. Well, Uncle Augie, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Love you. And guys, thanks for being a part of this. Till next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.